Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
So glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. If you don't already, please subscribe to the Three Martini Lunch on your podcast platform. Also follow us and subscribe on YouTube. And Jim, good, bad, crazy martinis for you today. And we start with the good. And, you know, we saw this with Mexico playing tougher on border policy during the first 4 years of the original Trump presidency. And now it seems that tough words are working once again, even before Trump gets into office, even with a president who's not inclined to see eye to eye with Donald Trump on a lot. But you may remember Donald Trump just last week, I believe, saying that he was going to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada unless the countries crack down on the flow of illegal immigrants and drugs across the border. That came from the Associated Press, flagged by Free Beacon. Big surprise, Jim. All of a sudden, Mexico, according to CNN and others, has just made their largest fentanyl bust in history, with over a ton of the synthetic opioids seized in 2 raids in the cartel-ridden northern state of Sinaloa. Quote, "It's the largest seizure of fentanyl pills that has ever been made," Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum said Thursday morning during her daily press conference, adding that the amount seized surpasses 20 million doses. Quote, "Think about it. The consumption of a person addicted to fentanyl over the course of a year is like a packet of sugar. Then think about a ton of fentanyl. We're talking about more than 20 million doses and close to 8 billion Mexican pesos or $394 million. And so, Jim, diplomacy is part carrot, part stick. And when it comes to Trump, his stick is pretty effective.
Greg, it's amazing what can happen when someone is properly motivated, as
Yes.
apparently the Mexican government suddenly became in just the last few weeks. It does make you wonder, were these the sorts of things that could have, these sorts of raids, these sorts of arrests, could they have happened a long time ago? That old saying about from the Untouchables, everybody knows where the booze is. It's a question of what are you willing to do to stop it? I'm not a fan of across-the-board tariffs. I think that the economic data is clear that they end up hurting, that the costs of that inevitably get passed along to consumers. Polling indicates the vast majority of the American public doesn't believe that at all and believes that somehow the other country pays and that cost never gets passed along to them. I do believe there can be uses to tariffs. I think there's certainly a national security advantage to that. If you want to reduce reliance on, say, China, a hostile state, and not want to be dependent upon it for any vital part of your functioning of daily life, including medications, it may make sense to try to discourage imports from there. I would have no problem with a use of tariffs against countries that have an excessive amount of slave labor. I don't think it's fair to expect It's one thing to expect American workers to compete with foreign workers when they're overseas. It's another thing to compete with slave labor overseas. But by and large, I'm not a fan of tariffs. Having said that, when Trump uses them, he always gives the other country an out. He always gives them, I'm going to do these tariffs unless you do X, which is a sign Trump really wants X. And some might even say Trump will settle for something that looks like significant progress on X, because that, while there's Lighthizer and there's a bunch of other, very pro-tariff lawmakers around Trump, he's got folks from the business community who understand economics and who know that inevitably ends up harming you. You end up getting retaliatory tariffs on your exports to that country as well. So looks like an early victory for Trump. We will see if this, continues and is sustained, or whether it's kind of a one-off by the Mexican government saying, get off our back. But nonetheless, a good sign, and that what makes it our good martini for the day.
No, absolutely right. And he didn't, like you said, have to even impose the tariff, just had to threaten to impose the tariff, which makes me think of The Princess Bride, of course, when they're storming the castle, trying to disrupt the wedding of Prince Humperdinck and Buttercup, and Inigo Montoya and Fezzik, played by Andre the Giant. They get to the gate there, and they say, "Give us the key." "What key? What are you talking about?" "Fezzik, rip off his arms." "Oh, this key."
Yes, yeah.
And so this is exactly
that raid on the fentanyl group. Okay,
Yes.
got it. Yeah. That fentanyl. Okay, we're going to get it. No problem.
And on the more serious side, was the Biden administration even asking for this help? Were they trying to push that hard for it? I mean, when it came to the surge of people across the border, they certainly didn't seem to be doing much about it until the last year, when they thought it might help Biden or Harris get over the finish line. But given their policies on everything else related to the border, I'm not even sure how hard they tried to stop this. So a nice change.
Greg, this could be a whole separate conversation, so I'll just try to keep it quick. How many times from the Biden administration did we see a policy that was a whole bunch of carrots and few, if any, sticks? You can think about Iran. You can think about, I think, the early year of this of the Biden administration, where they wanted a stable and predictable relationship with Russia, their treatment of China, all kinds of hostile states. They seemed very afraid to do anything escalatory, which is usually what how they perceive the stick. So Trump is demonstrating. It's not he doesn't have any carrots. He's just a little quicker to wave that stick around, and lo and behold, he can get some results that the Biden administration couldn't.
Yeah, I think one of the things that worked well for Trump in terms of the world stage in the first 4 years was people thinking he wouldn't really do that, would he? Maybe we shouldn't do this then. And I don't know that reputation has diminished much as he comes in for his second term. So very interesting. All right. Well, I'll tell you what else is interesting. If you're a cartel and you just lost whatever that was, $400 million or whatever it is, you might be reaching for some tequila bottles, and hopefully there's a lot more raids happening. It's going to cost you a lot more money and put you in jail, if not 6 feet under. Cartels are purely evil. But hey, if you're going to drink, take Z-Biotics first, because I'll tell you what, you will wake up the next morning feeling better than if you didn't take it.
Yes, even evil cartel members should be using Z-Biotics. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. And it's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next morning. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down. So just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, as I'm sure you always do. And you will feel your best the following morning.
Got the colleague here at Radio America. All of a sudden, his good, effective limits weren't working. Tried Z-Biotics, felt great the next morning. Go to zbiotics.com/3ml to get 15% off your first order when you use 3ml at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantees, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Visit zbiotics.com/3ml and use the code 3ml at checkout for 15% off. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode and our good times. All right, Jim, I know we've talked a lot about pardons this week, but we're going to talk about the pardon of Hunter Biden in a slightly different way. And we may have more pardon talk coming up, because now there's all this talk about preemptive pardons for other figures that the left fears could be prosecuted in a new Trump administration. But in reacting to the Joe Biden pardon of Hunter Biden, there are a lot of hot takes, most of which were negative towards Joe Biden. Some of them on the far left defended him because, Trump was convicted and now he gets off the hook and all this stuff. But nobody tops the Esquire here and Charles Pierce, who decided to do this scathing column saying Hunter Biden isn't the first presidential son caught up in controversy. Anybody remember Neil Bush? And then the subhead says, nobody defines Poppy Bush's presidency by his son's struggles or the pardons he issued on his way out of the White House. The moral, shut the bleep up about Hunter Biden, please. And it's in reference to Neil Bush, and he got caught up in the savings and loans deal and faced some legal problems as a result of that. Only one problem with the premise of this story. George H.W. Bush never pardoned his son. So the editor's note gets added to this column saying, this story has been updated. An earlier version stated incorrectly that George H.W. Bush gave a presidential pardon to his son, Neil Bush. Esquire regrets the error. It's usually some detail or quote that wasn't quite captured accurately, that's a nuanced part of the story when you get an editor's note. This is basically like, our entire premise was garbage. Hey, sorry about that. And of course, now they've taken the whole story down online. So apparently you have a columnist who can't do his research and editors who don't bother to make sure that the columnist is doing everything to get his facts right.
First of all, those of us who have had the misfortune of running into Charles Pierce, either online or in person, are less than shocked by this turn of events. That lo and behold, oh my goodness, you mean he just ran off half-cocked and blurted out stuff that he kind of sort of half remembered or mixed up two different stories, and he blurted it all out there without bothering to check? He did that? Yeah, isn't it shocking that it's always exactly the person you'd suspect to be like that? But the irony is, Greg, this is the second case of somebody apparently using AI to do their research, which you shouldn't do, right? You should actually crack the book open, right? Go look, but if there's this thing, you're like, my God, why doesn't anybody remember this? Maybe you're the only person who remembers it. Once in a great while, that'll be there. But most of the time, if there's a decent chance you're misremembering things. The other example that I debated writing about, and it almost seemed like picking on somebody on the short bus. Ana Navarro Cardenas from The View had gone out and tweeted that, yes, there are other presidents who pardon relatives. Bill Clinton pardoning Roger Clinton, which was sort of true, but this is like an AI misconstruing of it. Donald Trump pardoning Charles Kushner. Yeah, that was done, but Kushner was, and then Woodrow Wilson's pardon of Hunter DeButts. Now, Greg, I know you're a history buff, and Hunter DeButts, an infamous name in history. If this had actually occurred, that this would be the one question that every class clown in history class would get right. And in fact, Hunter DeButts would be the name to every answer. Shockingly, Woodrow Wilson did a lot of terrible things, but pardoning Hunter DeButts was not actually one of them. So Ana Navarro puts this out there, gets some grief about it, and then snarkily says, hey, Twitter sleuths, thanks for taking the time to provide context. Take it up with Chat GPT. Laughing face, laughing face, laughing face. She thinks this is a in-your-face. Hey, the AI said that I'm right. As we know, as AI programmers will tell you, it's going around the internet and it's scraping stuff and it's putting stuff together, and it really has no inherent ability to know something is true or false. And that, look, for all the flaws humans have, and my older teenager keeps telling me that the Terminator movies are not documentaries. You cannot trust them for their assessment of what artificial intelligence. But human beings do have that. Does that sound right? I don't remember. You kind of had this feeling, but Hunter DeButts, are we sure that that wasn't one of Bart Simpson's names that he uses to call into the bar, Moe's? You'd be like, hey, if there was a guy named Hunter DeButts who was the center of a big pardon I would have heard about that. You would have seen sketches about it. It would be a funny, Ana Navarro does not have that instinct. This goes out there, and the only thing I said was there's nothing I can say. No insult, no sneer, no joke that I can do to embarrass Ana Navarro than she has just done herself. There are certain times you're like, there's nothing more I can do. My work here is done. You have embarrassed yourself more than anything I can say or write right here. So twice, and again, not exactly shocking which two so far, Greg. But here, a little reminder: don't just use AI as your research tool. If something sounds too good to be true, check it out. When the name is Hunter DeButts, come on, people. My standards were low, but you still managed to go below those.
Does that mean a 15-year-old is working at Chat GPT and program that kind of stuff in there? I don't know. But the only thing that would have made it better is if Ana Navarro had said it on The View, and then she would have had to do one of those legal notes that Sonny Hostin has to do basically every day as she attacks different people nominated for Trump's cabinet so that View doesn't get sued.
I mean, somewhere is there the 15-year-old is writing the infamous World War I German general Graben von Schlang or something like that. You'd like to think at some point people would say, that doesn't sound right. That's something. Some little hamster wheel in the back of the brain would be like, I'm going to check that out before I put that out for the whole wide world, citing it as irrefutable evidence that my argument is right.
Well, you should always double check AI, but you're going to need AI for your business, because even if you think it's a bit overhyped, as Ana Navarro apparently does, AI is suddenly everywhere, from self-driving cars to molecular medicine to business efficiency. And if it's not in your industry yet, it's coming fast. But AI needs a lot of speed and computing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? Well, it's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI.
OCI will never refer you to Hunter DeButts. OCI is a blazing fast and secure platform for your infrastructure, database, and application development needs, plus all of your AI and machine learning workloads. OCI costs half that of other computing services and 80% less for networking, so you're saving a pile of money. Thousands of businesses have already upgraded to OCI, including MGM Resorts, Specialized Bikes, and Fireworks AI.
Right now, Oracle is offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI for new U.S. customers with minimum financial commitment. Offer ends 12/31/24. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/martini. That's oracle.com/martini.
The IRS wants to do your tax returns. The Watchdog on Wall Street podcast with Chris Markowski. Every day, Chris helps unpack the connection between politics and the economy and how it affects your wallet. The IRS now has a $114 million budget to expand their direct file program. Filing with the IRS is like playing poker with mirrored sunglasses. Don't show your cards. Whether it's happening in D.C. or down on Wall Street, it's affecting you financially. Be informed. Check out the Watchdog on Wall Street podcast with Chris Markowski on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast.
All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And I don't think this one has a political component. It may have a business component here. But the story that kind of grabbed a lot of people's attention, especially on X and elsewhere yesterday, was this brazen murder of Brian Thompson, the 50-year-old CEO of United Healthcare in Midtown Manhattan yesterday. As you point out in the Morning Jolt, and you devote your Jolt to this story, you know, this is not some shady neighborhood of New York City. This is just down the street from Radio City Music Hall and Rockefeller Center, and this is a good part of Manhattan normally. But yesterday, Brian Thompson's coming to the Hilton Hotel for an investors conference that was supposed to start at 8. This was about at 6:45, so I mean, there's video of it all over the place, of this shooter stepping out, shooting Thompson in the back, and I guess shooting him multiple times. Thompson later declared dead at Roosevelt Hospital. And now all the little facts are coming in. We can see the arrestor, usually known as a silencer, on the gun in this surveillance video, and there's writing on the bullets, as you point out, and there's going to be more and more evidence coming out here. Some people think this is a professional hit job. Other people think it's somebody upset about a denied insurance claim, or could be anything at this point. But what do you make of the fact that much of America basically saw a murder point blank in the middle of Midtown Manhattan yesterday?
Yeah, that video is floating around a great deal on social media. This is where you'd usually say viewer discretion is advised. It's conceivable that this is not a topic of politics, but it's also not unthinkable that this is directly a topic of politics, and certainly the reaction has had a political or ideological element of it. Among the details, and you kind of alluded to this, was the notion that there was some sort of somebody had written on the shell casings, deny, defend, and depose. The wife of the victim, Paulette Thompson, said that he had been receiving threats. She didn't specify, I don't know, a lack of coverage. I don't know details. I just know that he said that there were some people who had been threatening him. Obviously, that's going to be a early focus of the investigation, I suspect. If you're saying deny, defend, and depose, that would certainly suggest the possibility of denied coverage to someone and someone who decided to take out revenge upon this. I also went back, and kudos to the Minnesota Star Tribune, who went back to look at police records for the United Healthcare headquarters building in Minnetonka, Minnesota. A couple of them, and probably the most notable one was just this past July 15th, 11 people arrested for leftist, pro-socialized medicine, anti-health insurance company group called People's Action Institute. Staged a protest, a bunch of people got arrested. I did notice one of the person was from New York. We don't know that person was the shooter here, but it did. But we should point out, this is one of the biggest healthcare companies in the country. I believe it's number 8 in the Fortune 500 on the world, right? So this is a massive company. Apparently the number, some 40-some million Americans have coverage to this company. The number of people who are frustrated with their insurance company is not going to be a short list. Now, whether this is enough where somebody would go off and, track the guy, stalk him, and shoot him, thankfully that's much less likely and more rare. Two other aspects that's kind of struck me as intriguing. One, there had been a hack of one of their subsidiaries earlier this year. They paid something like in the neighborhood of $22 million in Bitcoin or one of the electronic currency in ransomware. Apparently that traces back to a Russia-based ransomware gang. I don't know that there's something directly, whether that's directly tied to this, but it does. They are having various lawsuits against them for not protecting patients' medical records. And oh, by the way, they paid the ransomware and then the hackers still released people's personal medical records. Would that be the sort of thing that someone would drive someone to want to kill this guy? I don't know. Just it's worth an avenue of investigation. I suspect they'll be looking at. And then finally, the last one. This is from earlier in the year. Again, you don't think this is it's tough to say there's a direct tie. But United Health Group's senior executives had stock sales. They were. This is the sort of thing that's reviewed usually by the company. They were permitted to do it. However, shortly after the stock sales, it came out that the Justice Department was probing them for antitrust investigation. Nothing has come out of that investigation yet, but when the word of that antitrust investigation came out, the stock dropped. And this is the sort of thing that makes people say, did these guys act on some sort of insider information? And was that the sort of thing that they should not have been allowed to do? Thompson made about $15 million. Is that the sort of thing someone would kill him about? Probably not, but I mentioned that just for the sake of completeness of this investigation. You don't have to look far to find people who are like, yes, this is awesome. I'm so glad that a health insurance company CEO got murdered in cold blood. That is a horrible attitude to take, even if you're mad at your insurance company, even if you're mad at the person who has turned you down, saying, no, I don't think you should be able to have, we're not going to cover the cost of that medication or that procedure. You want to get angry about it, fine. The idea of I want to shoot you, in the back over that is please see a psychiatrist. Please see someone, because that's not a normal reaction. Getting really angry is acting on a violent impulse is the sort of thing that'll get you in trouble real fast in this life. And what was intriguing was from a whole bunch of people, including a rather infamous columnist who used to work at the Washington Post and who I only refrained from criticizing because my employers over there said play nice, who basically was like, yes, this is awesome, and this is why every health insurance company executive should be looking over their shoulder and feeling fear. This is psychotic. This is like, you really have problems. I hope someone who, like, if you're talking like that, I hope you have someone in your life who will, like, pull you aside and say, you need help. You should not be running around expressing these kinds of thoughts. There are a lot of things in this life that make us angry. I'm going to quote Yoda, anger turns to hate. It's one thing to be really angry about something. When you get to the point where you're fantasizing about somebody else's death, then you got real problems. And one of the things that we talk about political divisions on this podcast quite a bit. Politics give you somebody to hate. Now, I don't know whether the Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, or Detroit Lions count as your most hated enemy, the way that, like, the New England Patriots, Miami Dolphins, and Buffalo Bills count as mine. It's okay to I hate those guys. But when you genuinely hate these people and you genuinely are thinking about the joy of murder, that's when you really have a problem. And you should not, it's not good for you. It's not good for your soul. It's not good for the people around you. It's not good for your family. So I hope you're not, I doubt any of our listeners are in this category. And I think everybody would be on that. But I think it just kind of reveal, the reaction to this revealed the sheer number of people who fantasize about murder. Ironically, Greg, while often opposing the death penalty.
No, that's incredible. And let me just point out, I've never wished anyone dead on any of those teams in the NFC North, or the Buckeyes, or the Fighting Irish, or anyone else.
When it comes to other sports teams, we want them alive to suffer defeats over and over again.
You may hate Aaron Rodgers more right now than I ever did as a Bears fan, but it's close. But the dichotomy here on this is incredible. And so, first of all, I would point out to anyone upset with private insurance companies denying claims. First of all, if they promise to accept those claims, then you should fight them as best you can on that. But if you want to know what not getting coverage is going to be like, go with government-sponsored care and only government care and watch them deny things when they decide, you're old enough. You're already in failing health. I don't think so. It's not worth the escalating costs here. So there's a lot of reasons not to like that, and one of the reasons things are so expensive right now, among other things, is Obamacare. And go back and look at your deductibles in about 2009 as opposed to right now, and you'll see what I mean about that. But as far as the way that people are reacting to this, a guy going to a hotel getting shot, and people are justifying that. Meanwhile, also in New York, and I don't know if we'll get a verdict on this today, but Daniel Penny, who put the guy in the chokehold on the subway because he was menacing other people, and accidentally the guy in the chokehold died. Well, he's got to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, according to New York prosecutors. And so, just the complete disconnect in reality on those two cases, and the thinking between those two on some people is just amazing. So, the fact that we're in an era now where people can just see that on social media and go, had it coming. Or just even if they think it's horrible, they're just like, wow, yeah, you got killed. Okay, what's next on the scroll? Just shows you where we are as a society right now. Troubling for sure. So, Jim, on that note, we'll call time for today. Hopefully we got some much happier news on Friday.
Well, it's a low bar to clear. So see you Friday, Greg.
Definitely. Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Do subscribe again and tell your friends to follow us as well. We'd love to have them listening. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Thursday and join us again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.